Well, I guess I'll get started then on the idea that Rome actually ended through the through just being conquered by the Germanic kingdoms. So province by province and city by city, it slowly was whittled down until there was very little left to govern, and it was no longer what we could consider an empire. So the internal decline that Tristan described made Rome more vulnerable, but that sustained military pressure eventually is what brought it down. And so I think I'll talk us through, I think, three or four key moments that led to that collapse. I think the first thing that's important to discuss is the situation at the time and the circumstances that the Roman Empire found itself in hundreds of years after the events Tristan described, that between the fourth and fifth centuries, there was a lot of pressure on the borders of Rome, specifically from the Huns. They swept through Eastern Europe
Attila the
and
Hun.
sorry?
Yeah, Attila the
Attila the Hun.
Yeah, the Huns. So they swept through Eastern Europe, and in the late periods, their arrival pushed entire Germanic peoples like the Visigoths, the Ostrogoths, and the Vandals further west into Roman territory. So entire communities were being pushed in, and this just meant tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of displaced peoples or refugees had to be dealt with by Rome all at once. And many historians believe, and I think we'll see, that Rome's response to that mass migration kind of set up every crisis that followed suit. I saw a good comparison that someone made through my research of it was pretty much like a pressure cooker. Like the pressure built up over tens and like decades and eventually screwed Rome over.
So it's more like a smoker.
Yeah, but
The
when you think of it
pressure
on
cooker
yeah,
is
but
fast.
if you think about it on like a larger scale, let's say, like 80 years is not all that much in the scale of the Roman Empire.
No, that's fair.
So for something to have stood for as long as the Roman Empire did to come down in 80 years is we could say it's pretty fast. But yes, it's like a slow pressure. So the first event that I'll talk about is the Battle of Adrianople, which happened in 378 AD, and many historians consider this to be the beginning of the end militarily. So, like I mentioned, displaced Germanic peoples, specifically the Visigoths, asked to settle inside the Roman Empire across the Danube. And at the time, Emperor Valens agreed, but Roman officials on the ground actually extorted and mistreated the settlers.
Damn.
What?
So yeah. So he's like, yeah, you know what? You guys can settle there. And then like
And
the
then just
they
started
just got
throwing fucking
extorted
tomatoes at them
and
and shit.
mistreated by, the local military, and they just kind
That's
of had to like
crazy.
take it. Obviously, they did not just take it. And this led to a revolt, and by 378 AD, the battle also included the Ostrogoths and the Visigoths, all under the leadership of a Thervingian chieftain named Fritigern, uh, who was also uh, pretty much up against a very unpopular emperor, which was Valens, who even permitted them to live in that area.
Okay, so nobody even liked Valens to begin with.
No, he was not popular.
Okay.
So during the Battle of Adrianople, Valens did not wait for reinforcements from his co-emperor, and who also happened to be his nephew Gratian, and he was eventually just killed off on the battlefield. And an estimated two-thirds of the Eastern Roman army was destroyed.
What? Two-thirds?
Two-thirds.
Against some goth baddies.
Yes, against some god baddies wearing chokers, led by Fritigern.
Led by Fritigern, yeah.
So, so why did this matter? Because during this battle, the Roman army's weaknesses were completely exposed, and these weaknesses were utilized in subsequent battles with the Goths, which just made things way easier for them. And it created a domino effect that eventually would bring down the Roman Empire in the West. As you can probably assume, like they found the tactic, they know the meta now and
Yeah,
they're gonna keep spamming it,
yeah,
But
and I mean, the Romans lost all their aura that day.
Yeah, 2/3 of it.
Because yeah, because up until that point, I feel like the Romans were seen as like this unstoppable force of nature. Like they
yeah, they
just
were.
kept expanding for like 1,000 years.
Yeah, and then they lost to some brutes,
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
like literally.
Um, that
But
were
wait,
that
I
were from
just wanted
three
to
different people.
clarify something real quick.
Yeah, go.
You said 2/3 of the Eastern Roman Empire, Eastern Roman army was destroyed, but then
Yeah,
the Western Roman Empire is what faces decline after that.
yes.
Like they used the tactics they found to defeat the eastern side, and then
Yeah,
went on
because
to
even
like
though
conquer
it
the
was
West.
split, but from how I understood it, maybe I made a mistake there, but no, I think it was still, even though it was like two split empires, it was still,
Yeah. It's still like
once they made their way
very
through, they knew
brand
how
new.
the legions worked. It became much easier to do what they needed to do to eventually get to the final destination, which was Rome, that
Hmm.
the Visigoths sacked not even 40 years after this battle.
Okay.
So the aftermath of the Battle of Adrianople was that the new emperor, Emperor Theodosius, was appointed in the West after Valens's death, and he later became known as Theodosius the Great because he was actually able to stabilize the eastern border, and he solidified Nicene Christianity's position, which is modern Christian, a lot of like Catholicism and Orthodox Christianity was part of that Nicene Christianity. And he was the last emperor to have ruled both the East and the West. However, to actually achieve that stability, he made a necessary decision that some historians actually view as damaging in the long run, but he had to make it. And he made a deal with the barbarians that allowed them to stay in Roman territory as a unified people while also keeping their own leaders, laws, culture, and military. So he
Makes
kind of
sense.
just said, I'll give you a territory, you guys can run it, you guys could build a military, do whatever you want, pretty much.
Mhm.
So this means that they could, and eventually, obviously, did revolt again.
What they wanted, and they're still
Yeah,
pissed.
yeah.
Oh, fuck these
Well,
guys,
because,
ungrateful.
because by integrating this way, he was able to use them to suppress Western rivals. So people
Oh,
pressuring their Western voters. So he pretty much used them as like mercenaries for his own army, but he was also outsourcing the defense of Rome to people who had just destroyed the Eastern army. And so a lot of Roman military strategy shifted to being Gothic tactics.
Because
So,
tonight will be the night that I will fall for you.
so he got clapped, and then he pretty much became one of them. He's like, oh, that worked pretty well against us. Let's use it against everyone else.
he got tatted up and started wearing mascara,
Exactly.
and I went to war.
Exactly. So the next major event was the sack of Rome itself in 410 AD.
Was it Harry?
It was saggy and wrinkly by this point.
Ah, Jesus.
Okay, so the sacking was led by a man named Alaric the Goth. So he had the black hair, the mascara, like you described. So he was actually a Roman soldier. He was integrated within the Roman army as a commander of Gothic foederati, which is allied troops. So the Gothic troops that they had integrated into the Roman army. And he was integrated under Emperor Theodosius, but
Mhm.
after he died, he felt betrayed because his men had suffered enormous casualties fighting Rome's wars, and they received nothing in return. So he'd spend years and years negotiating land for his people, a senior military title, etc., whatever he could get. But he was always rejected. Kind of sounds like another historical figure I know who got angry after he got rejected.
Right?
And so he decided
I
to.
can think of 50 off the top of my head.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know who you're referencing.
So after all these rejections, he decided to rebel, which is like kind of you could kind of see that coming, if you keep telling a guy no and all his boys are dying for someone else, and as a typical Goth does. So he began waging war on the Eastern Roman Empire, and eventually the West became so scared of him, they moved the defense of Rome to Ravenna, which was easier to defend. So they moved the capital from Rome to Ravenna because it was easier to defend it. So Rome was no longer the capital of the Western Roman Empire.
That's sad, bro. Like you named the
Think about how
empire after
crazy that
Rome.
is.
Yeah.
This guy was in the East. Like this guy was still in the East. And the West was so scared of him. They're like, no, no.
Move away from this guy.
Like the
Yeah.
aura has been
But
obliterated.
yeah, like the Western Roman Empire was basically a sack of shit for the last 100 years. So
Yeah. Yeah. So over these years of rebelling and combat, Alaric had an arch rival of sorts by the name of Flavius Stilicho. So he had actually defeated Alaric many times, but repeatedly let him escape. Like he just let the guy go. And many historians believe he was playing power politics because he viewed Alaric as a useful tool to exert pressure on the Eastern Empire or to use him as a mercenary force in future civil wars. Like this guy,
rules back then, bro, they were playing chess in 4D. Like I
dude,
swear to
legit,
God.
this guy was winning battles, but letting his biggest op live just in case he had to fight a bigger op.
But you see, like when we said earlier, what the fuck, they had a real estate crash, they had inflation, the same as us today, and then you look at the way Stilicho was acting, it's the same as like how a politician would act today. So really goes to
Even
show,
better.
like they're the same people as we are.
Yeah,
They're literally like they're us.
they don't have TikTok, they can't.
Yeah, like this is our potential if we didn't have brain rot.
Oh man. So in 408, Flavius got executed for treason by Emperor Honorius. And following his death, the Roman troops began massacring the families of Gothic soldiers living in Italy.
Okay,
And
they just
so
went like full fucking fascist.
they went ham. They
Yeah,
they went
really.
they went like full on like ethnic cleansing um in Italy. And so the survivors, thousands of survivors, defected to Alaric's army, and it grew to an estimated 30 to 40,000 strong.
Yeah, thank
So here comes the sacking. Alaric actually sieged Rome 3 separate times between 408 and 410. And during the first two, he was bought off, per se, like I guess you could kind of say that, with massive amounts of gold and silver and supplies.
silver, bro. It was all
Yeah,
bronze.
the 5% bullshit.
The 5%.
5% bullshit.
I don't know if it was the 5% bullshit silver
Trust
or
me,
real
bro. It's
silver.
100% pure.
He had gold and supplies as well. But as they negotiated, Honorius was continuously negotiating in bad faith with them. And Alaric finally decided, fuck this, I've had enough, I'm entering the city. So in 410, that's exactly what he did. Funny enough, this is a funny sentence. The sack itself was quite restrained.
Yeah, it was tight.
Yeah, it was. He was cold. It's believed that starving citizens within the city gates opened the way for Alaric, and him being a Christian ordered his men to respect Christian sanctuaries. So very few people died because a lot of them sought refuge within different, within churches and other buildings.
That's cool.
So the city itself actually sustained relatively minor damage and very few people died. And it kind of makes you think how crazy it is that a guy that was initially begging to be accepted by Rome, by the empire, would be the one to take Rome. Like not some warmonger. Like Hannibal couldn't do it, Like Hannibal wanted to take Rome. This guy wanted the senior military title. He wanted land so his people can live within the Roman Empire, and he's the one that ends up taking the city.
So an enemy is less dangerous than a scorned friend.
Exactly. That's a bar right there. That's a bar. So the psychological shock of this to contemporaries was actually enormous, and both St. Jerome and St. Augustine described it themselves in writing with pure confusion and disbelief, and they were extremely concerned about the implications for both Christianity and civilization as a whole. Like, that's how big of a deal this was that Rome was taken.
Yeah, they were tripping.
Yeah. So the next major event was the Vandal sack of 455.
Bro, how many people's sacks are you gonna talk about, dude? Damn. This is turning into a smut documentary, bro.
Get your head out of the gutter, man. So, okay. So how did this sack happen? Okay, sentence. God damn it. Okay, how did it happen? So Emperor Valentinian III had promised his daughter in marriage to the Vandal king Gaisaric's son, but he was assassinated. And his
guy's name
murderer,
was Gay Eric.
yeah, Gaisaric's son.
But when you compare the Latin names, bro, we were saying all the Latin words are so elegant and classy and epic. Bro, all the Germanic names are so fucking goofy.
Yeah, they are.
Pirtagern.
Well, look at the languages that came out of like Germanic, like with Germanic backgrounds, right?
Yeah, speak German today, bro. Like half of the words are like
Like
sausage.
the words are like 60 letters long, some of them. You know what I mean?
I don't find that very funny.
Okay.
All right.
So funny you say about how cool Roman names are, because Emperor Valentinian was assassinated by a guy named Petronius Maximus,
See?
which sounds like something out of Harry Potter.
Yeah.
So he seized the throne, and to legitimize his rule, he tried to marry off Valentinian's widow to Gaiseric, and she obviously did not fuck with this, and sent a letter to Gaiseric to save her. And he pretty much treated the murder as the treaty being broken and as a declaration of war, because he's like, we had a deal, and you just murdered like a primary person within this deal. So war it is, kind of thing. So they launched a massive naval invasion, and before they even entered the city, Maximus, who was trying to flee, was stoned to death by an angry mob. Well, with pretty much no army to defend the city, the OG Pope Leo I, met with Gaiseric and negotiated terms to ensure the population was not massacred. And so for 2 weeks, the Vandals took everything of value, including the bronze roof tiles of the Temple of Jupiter. And this is actually where the word vandalism originated from.
That's crazy. Imagine.
Vandals, yeah, that's sick.
They
I
were
was wondering
vandalizing-
where the tie was between like vandalism and the
Imagine
It was
your
Germanic vandals.
culture / ethnic group, the name of it becomes a word in common language for like bums that like deface public property.
So this was not as like, let's say, peaceful or chill as the sacking of Rome in 410.
But they invented the word vandalism for it. Yeah, it wasn't chill. No, I don't think.
So they also ended up taking many slaves during the sacking, from skilled artisans all the way up to aristocrats. And then he eventually married his son to one of the empress's daughters, or one of Valentinian's daughters, pretty much, to actually complete that original deal they had made. You can obviously guess the political fallout from this was huge, because between 455 and 476, at the hands of a Germanic general called Ricimer, he was pretty much just the de facto ruler of Rome, and Rome was cycling through puppet emperors for years. And the loss of wealth from everything they vandalized and skilled labor from the slaves they took completely crippled the treasury and the city's ability to even raise a new army. So at this point, Rome is a husk of what it used to be, and they don't have the means to recover. There's no coming back. So
It's always
by
winnable.
15, It's 60 minutes into the game and they still have an FF. So by 476, the the Western Roman Empire was effectively just Italy, and even that was controlled by Ricimer. And even the Roman Emperor, who was a puppet, had very little control of any territory outside of Italy. And so the last Roman emperor in 476 AD was Romulus Augustulus, and he was even recognized as a legitimate ruler outside of Italy.
Okay, I gotta say something.
Yes.
How fucking sick is it that the last emperor of Rome...
No, his name is
Right?
sick.
Romulus,
Romulus, which is the founder of Rome, and then Augustulus, which was the first emperor, and then he was like the most anticlimactic ending to this whole thing. Yeah,
Attack on Titan writing.
It's a perfect story. Yeah, it's literally
the last
like
emperor is named after the first king of Rome. And by the way, Augustulus is like, it's a diminutive, right? It's like little Augustus.
Like, yes, exactly.
Well, he was the little Augustus because he was 16 years old when he was installed as emperor.
That's crazy.
16-year-old Italian boy.
Yeah.
Italian boy.
So he was put there by his father, who was a Roman general called Orestes, who had overthrown the previous emperor, Julius Nepos.
Okay, the OG Nepo baby.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I would guess Romulus Augustulus would have been the Nepo baby in this case.
Yeah.
So eventually, Odoacer, who was a Germanic commander in the Roman army, pulled up and demanded land for his troops and was refused. And so he revolted, because obviously he's going to revolt. Can you see the trend yet? Like, can you see the trend?
Never trust Germanics.
Land, dude. Just give them land.
Even when you give it to them, they're
still
so pissed off. Yeah, they still revolt.
That's true.
There's no way.
Don't like murk their entire families, you know?
I think the actual lesson to draw is you don't trust God.
Exactly. We need strong borders. We need to build
It's
a wall.
the Captain Piercing theory.
And the Vandals are going to pay for it.
Yeah. So Odoacer was actually loyal to the Eastern Roman Emperor Zeno, which is a sick name, by the way. Like first of all, also crazy writing, because what do you mean this guy was just loyal to the other emperor?
Bro, I'm telling you, history is like watching an anime.
No,
like he was loyal to the emperor.
Little side notes, one of my favorite historical things was when this Roman general gets exiled and he goes to like Syria and he meets up and Hannibal is there and he's like, "What up?"
Yes, it was Scipio. It was like the general that defeated Hannibal.
Yes, Scipio goes there and he's like, and they have a conversation about who the three greatest generals of all time are, and Hannibal doesn't even put Scipio in his top 3.
Hannibal put himself number 3.
Yeah.
Then he put Pyrrhus, who was another enemy of Rome, number 2, I think, and then he put Alexander first. And Scipio told him, like, bro, like I beat you. What do you mean you're putting yourself number 3? Like, where would you be if you had won? And he's like, bro, if I beat you, I would have been 1.
Dude, like legit, like you couldn't write that shit up. I was so hyped when I was like learning that. I'm like, what do you mean he's back?
It's straight up anime, bro. Or like Hannibal's dad taught him from a young age, like these are our enemies. You know, you're gonna cross the sea and go.
You will take vengeance during the first
Attack on Titan plot.
Straight up.
Yeah.
Hannibal was an anime protagonist.
Anyways. So after defeating Orestes, Odoacer took Romulus captive and he sent the imperial regalia back to Constantinople. So pretty much declaring that there will be no more emperors in the West, signaling that one shared emperor was sufficient for the entire
So he just
empire.
went full circle.
Yeah, pretty much. So he's like, no more emperors in the West. That's pretty much how some would say the Roman Empire died, because no more emperors. It's all in Constantinople now. It's all the Byzantine Empire.
It ends even in like a more anticlimactic way, because there was no like crazy bloodbath or crazy final battle. Like
it was one small battle. He got beat, and that's it.
He didn't even get beat. Romulus Augustus gave up, and let Odoacer take over. And Odoacer was like, "I'm not going to kill you. You're just like a young 16-year-old boy."
Yeah.
He gave him like a monthly
Allowance?
allowance, and he let him go live with his family like in the campagne.
Damn.
And he just like lived off his days with like what do you call not a bursary, a small like sum of money that he would give him every year.
Yeah. So I guess before moving on, I'm sure some people have questions about what happened to all the Roman provinces, the Western Roman provinces,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
over the years. So I'll go through the four main ones quickly. So starting with Britain, which was pretty much considered abandoned around, and it happened around like 410 AD. So around that time, British legions declared for Constantine III as emperor, and he withdrew all mobile field troops to Gaul, which left Britain defended by nothing but border guards. So while he was fighting Saxon on the continent, Saxons, Scots, and Picts ended up raiding Britain, and feeling abandoned, the British aristocracy expelled Constantine and declared independence. They're like, all right, you're not going to help us. We are going to be an independent state. And in 410, they asked Honorius for help. But due to his fight with Alaric, he replied telling them that the British cities should look to their own defenses, which pretty much severed the province from imperial oversight. And from that point on, they just kind of did their own thing on the side. So that's why it's said that the Roman Empire pretty much abandoned Britain. Next up was Gaul, where our boys Asterix and Obelix stationed. So Gaul is considered to have been lost after the Rhine crossing in 406. So on New Year's Eve, the Rhine froze over and a massive group of Vandals, Alans, and Suebi walked across the ice.
Even Alan was there.
Even Alan.
Out of everyone.
Sorry, multiple Allens. The Allens were there. Better not fuck with the Allens.
But that's another anime moment. Dangerous. On New Year's Eve, the river froze and they just crossed on foot.
Yes, and they bypassed the Roman defenses that were fighting Constantine.
Happy New Year!
So over the next few decades, Gallo-Roman aristocrats began inviting these Goths to stay, and different parts of Gaul were then settled by these various groups, creating mini-states across the entire region. And obviously Roman administration gradually eroded rather than just vanishing overnight. So like, oh yeah, come stay in our land, and like kind of hoping for like free defense and maybe not to get on their bad side. And then these mini cities and mini states and mini kingdoms began appearing, which I think we end up seeing later on with the number of kingdoms that appeared in Western Europe. As for Spain, it was effectively carved up by, once again, the Goths between 409 and 426. So the same tribes that crossed the Rhine just kept going west. Why not? And once they crossed the Pyrenees, they settled across the entire region, and the Vandals removed the entire province from central Roman control. So Spain became a patchwork of competing barbarian groups, and the only way for Rome to actually exert influence was to fund proxy wars. So they'd pick a group and they'd start, that's how they'd do it, which once again, very similar to a lot of wars and stuff we're seeing today. Funding different groups to move forward your own agenda. Yeah. And the final province that we should talk about would be North Africa, pretty much. And this one was the most economically devastating because it was both the source of grain and tax revenue. And under the leadership of Gaiseric, as many as 80,000 Vandals crossed the Mediterranean to Africa. And eventually, Rome was forced to recognize Vandal control over the North African provinces and gave up on it. Because what are you going to do against 80,000 Vandals? And Gaiseric.
Shit.
Exactly. So, okay. Pretty much done there. All that to say, I'll quickly summarize. The Western Roman army quickly went from being one of the most feared military forces to ceasing to exist within a century, like less than a century. And none of these invasions and none of this happened within a vacuum. We saw everything was interconnected. The barbarians sacked Rome in 410. They were led by a man who served in the Roman army. The man who deposed the last emperor was also a Roman officer. And the barbarian invasions were people that were accepted by the empire initially. They were trained by the empire. They were integrated into their armies, but they failed to even treat them fairly. So while it was conquered, you could also say that it was conquered from within its own ranks.
I really like that. I think that's a great way to cap off your
good closing statement.
It goes, and I guess this is more recent, the more recent view of it, because I feel like back in the day, people's view of the fall of Rome was really just, like you said, these barbarians came in, like broke through the walls and just stormed the city, and like in a Marvel movie.
Yeah,
but exactly. It's a lot more nuanced. Like they were already in there. The Romans were training them and stuff. It's a lot more interesting than the black and white.
Once again, reflected in a lot of modern day conflict.
I don't see it, bro. You're telling me there's like this
don't see it?
Very powerful empire that's doing like their currency is becoming worthless because they keep printing money. There's at the gate trying to come in that are being mistreated.
I would step back from the word part when you're making this comparison. When you're
I don't see the parallel.
Yeah, you're right. I might be.
No, it's obvious.
Be driven.
Bars. So, by the way, you guys think Trump is the Julius Caesar of our time?
I wouldn't consider him to be anywhere near as publicly revered.
Yeah, but as in like
Julius
a person
I don't think
who
he's anywhere near as like intelligent nor like he's going to wars and consistently.
Yeah, but that's not what I mean.
But in the sense where he's like kind of rewriting the overall like constitution.
Yeah,
well, yeah, he's turning the country into a dictatorship.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Well, like Caesar did. Like Caesar did. That's my point.
But I think Caesar did it in a way that was for the overall good of it was an empire at the time, but I guess the
Republic.
Yeah, but that might just be because it's been 2,000 years, so we see it with rose-tinted glasses.
But
yeah, I guess we do.
But the thing is,
I mean, no, Caesar's for sure cooler also.
I find it's hard to compare the two when they're so drastically different. Yes, that is like the one.
Yeah, but what we represent is similar. It's a country founded on like Republican democratic values.
Yeah,
that's leaning more and more towards.
True. They also had a whole thing about no kings, like the word. What was it? The word. There was a word that was not allowed. Like they didn't want that word to. Yes, Rex.
Yeah, yeah, because the beginning of the Republic...
The consuls will always try to take the name Rex, and then they'd get murked for it.
Yeah, and that's something that...
Like a no-king protest.
Something that Augustus was a master at is that he knew how much the Roman collective psyche hated kings and the idea of kings. Yeah. So he would name himself every title in the book except king or emperor. But he was his main title as leader, Augustus, was princeps, which is first amongst equals. That was his title. Yes, I'm not above you guys. I'm not your king. We're all equal, but hey, I'm the first.
Yeah, but that was more like a psychological.
Yeah, of course.
I'm looking it up.
Title.
And there has been analysis done on this. There are multiple threads talking about this, and the four most common comparisons are Nero, Caligula, Commodus, and Augustus.
That's because Caligula was an inbred.
So for Nero, because they share a background in spectacle, and both are noted for having
television.
Well, with Nero acting as a performer and builder, much like Trump's media and real estate career, both are noted for using advisors with no political background, having cults of personality, and being polarizing figures.
Okay.
Caligula, because the sidelining of the Senate and a desire to see what he could get away with. His appointment of a horse as a senator is seen as a parallel to holding the elite in contempt and challenging political norms.
The master's horse, bro.
Yeah. Commodus, see a compelling match of Commodus, highlighting his focus on spectacle over substance, populist rallies, which was the gladiatorial games, and the perception of him as a clownish leader who ushered in a period of decline. Pretty good.
That dude came right after Marcus Aurelius. I guess.
Yeah.
And that was.
And then the last one was Augustus. So Augustus was seen as a shrewd and strategic leader, but They draw parallels to his branding genius. Augustus used slogans like "The Republic has been restored," which parallels "Make America Great Again," and similarly
The
focus on
Republic has been restored.
Yeah, that's crazy.
similarly focused on transforming institutions to centralize executive power.
I
Damn.
kind of
think
like I kind of like this little like
Yeah.
segment.
Yeah, me too. So let us know what you think, guys. Which Roman emperor is closest to Trump?
Yeah, which Roman or any emperor makes you think of Trump.